as they come along here. So
Okay.
thank you everybody for coming this morning and attending our workplace culture and communications event. As we all know, communication within your team is very critical. And in these times of remote employees, we have to be very intentional about how we manage when we can't always see what people are working on. So Richard Hedges from the Alternative Board is here to help us redefine our culture, help us to hire better, fire faster, as well as hopefully share some tips on how to make a happier, more productive team. To introduce Richard today is Jeremy Clark. Jeremy is the founder and president of Simple Life Homes, and Jeremy has been working with Richard and Tab since last December.
Super, yeah, good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. So I met Richard in late 2020 after being referred to, excuse me, let me turn this off, after being referred to the Alternative Board, Tab, by a friend who was a part of a different local Tab board. I reached out to learn more, ended up having a call with Richard, who leads my local Tab chapter. Richard's been operating Tab for 5 years and has coached hundreds of business leaders between Tab and his prior IBM experiences. I've learned that Richard has a passion for coaching and finds true joy from the process. He's been invaluable to me as a coach over the past 6 or so months. I recently shared with Richard that initially I was actually a bit hesitant to join Tab. After reflecting on that, I realized that I was nervous to have a coach because I knew it would force me to grow, and growing can be hard. That said, I wanted to become a better business leader, and this was the way to do it. As a minimum, Richard meets with his clients once per month individually and once per month as a group, virtually these days, of course. Since the first month that I began the coaching with Richard, there hasn't been a month that I didn't request additional hours of coaching. I've come to learn that Richard provides so much more than just feedback. He provides a consistent accountability combined with advice on technique and approach. He's a sounding board when something just isn't clear. He looks out for you and your best interest, but is fair and honest about how our roles as business leaders impact our team and others. Richard shared with me that some of his Tab board members have been with Tab for nearly a decade. This was a big deal when he told me that, for a big part of the reason that I wanted to join. The longer that I'm a part of the group, the more I realize how ineffective I was being previously as a leader. It's been amazing to learn from and share my experiences with other like-minded business owners, and I'm truly thrilled with the return on my investment from joining Tab. I imagine I'll be with Tab for a long time to come, and would encourage anyone who is looking to grow, improve their skills, and become a better business leader to seriously consider joining your local Tab board. Without further ado, Richard Hedges, everybody.
Thank you, Jeremy. Thank you very much. That's a lot of nice words. And welcome, everybody. Thanks for joining us this morning. As Tanya said, we're going to talk this morning about workplace culture and communication. I think we live in a time when it's a very, very appropriate topic. So let me start sharing my screen here. Where am I? There. All right. Can everybody see that? I see a head nodding. Okay. Awesome. Yeah, so we're going to spend, well, I guess about the next 50 minutes together. And what I really hope to do is give you a couple new tools, some techniques to strengthen and improve your workplace culture and your communication techniques. So let me launch into this. Maybe it goes without saying, but we live in a time of change. And, you know, we've been dealing with this pandemic for, well, a little over a year. We probably got another 6 months optimistically to go before we get out of the end of it. And I think it's fair to say it's changed the world. I think in the world of business, some of those changes are going to stick around. I've seen lots of articles and lots of sort of leading people in the industry talking about the fact that virtual remote management and employment is going to be a way of life as we move forward. This isn't just a pandemic thing. It's going to change our workplaces on an ongoing basis. And I think it does change how we manage communication and how we think about our people. When you get right down to it, you're only as good as your team, right? You're only as good as the people on your team. It's often said your people are your greatest asset. I would say in some of the businesses I've worked with over the years, sometimes they're your greatest liability too. And how to get a handle on that, how to deal with that and manage that is really important. And how do we prosper and do well regardless of our circumstances? So culture, why is that important? Why are we talking about this at all, right? What does culture have to do with anything? So a guy named James Heskett, a professor emeritus from Harvard Business School, wrote a book a little while ago. And one of the takeaways from that book is that as much as half of the difference in operating profit between organizations can be attributed to effective culture. So, what does that say? That says that culture translates to effectiveness, that, people with stronger teams, better teams, more coherent teams perform better as organizations. And I translate that into great people deliver great performance. And, think about it, right? What if your team was filled with great people? How do we make that happen? That's what we're going to talk about this morning. So I like to start with this. Let's just talk a little bit about what culture is, right? Culture is how you do things. Culture is what you tolerate. If you tolerate bullying and bad behavior and things like that in your workplace, well, that's what your culture becomes. And it's worth reflecting a little bit on what your culture looks like right now. I realized when I shared my screen, I didn't share the way I wanted to. So let me stop sharing and I will come back in here again. Share screen. Share. There we go. We should be back where we were. Yeah, so I think it's important to reflect on what we have in place today. And now I want to show you just a short kind of 2-minute little video that I think puts a lot of what we're going to talk about this morning in context. So Simon Sinek, has everybody heard of Simon Sinek? He's written famous author and speaker. One of his, I guess, most famous books out there is called Start With Why. What is the why of your business? But this is Simon talking about culture in the workplace. Let me start this. Click. And
is performance on the battlefield and performance off.
Beginning.
Worked with the Navy SEALs, and I asked them, like, how do you pick like the guys that go on SEAL Team 6, right? Because they're the best of the best, the best, the best. And they drew a graph for me, and on one side they wrote the word performance, and on the other side they wrote the word trust. The way they define the terms is performance on the battlefield and performance off the battlefield. So this is your skills. This is, did you make your quarterly earnings, whatever, however you want to translate it, right? Performance, it's traditional. This is, how are you off the battlefield? What kind of person are you? The way they put it is, I may trust you with my life, but do I trust you with my money and my wife? This is what they told me. Nobody wants this person, the low performer of low trust, of course. Of course, everybody wants this person, the high performer of high trust. Of course. What they learned is that this person, the high performer of low trust, is a toxic leader and a toxic team member. And they would rather have a medium performer of high trust, sometimes even a low performer of high trust, it's a relative scale, over this person. This is the highest performing organization on the planet, and this person is more important than this person. And the problem in business is we have lopsided metrics. We have 1,000,001 metrics to measure someone's performance and negligible to no metrics to measure someone's trustworthiness. And so what we end up doing is promoting or bonusing toxicity in our businesses, which is bad for the long game because it eventually destroys the whole organization. The irony is it's unbelievably easy to find these people. Go to any team and say, who's the asshole? And they'll... they will all point to the same person. Equally, if you go to any team and say, who do you trust more than anybody else? Who's always got your back? And when the chips are down, they will be there with you. They will also all point to the same person. It's the best gifted natural leader who's creating an environment for everybody else to succeed, and they may not be your most individual highest performer. But that person, you better keep them on your team.
Okay. Whoops. There we go. So that's Simon Sinek, and talking about really, I think, the soft things, right? It's not about when you look at the performance of your team, just how people do their job. It's about, or just what people's deliverables are, and whether they met their KPIs. It is about how they do their job. Does their team trust them, and more than does their team trust them. So what I'd like to do now is a little exercise for everybody. I'd like you to think of your two strongest, your two best employees or colleagues. And I'd like you to take 3 minutes, I will time this, and just write down their strongest attributes. Why are they your best people? Why are they your strongest employees? What are the characteristics they have that make them that? What I'd like you to do actually is at the end of this, I'll come out of screen share, and if you can type your attributes into the chat, we'll walk through that together and just have a look at what the group has come up with. So please take 3 minutes. I will time it, and we will come back and talk about what we got in the chat. Got about a minute left. 30 seconds. Okay. Oh, I could pause sharing. That's interesting. All right, if you'd like to turn your cameras on so we can see each other. Where's the chat? Has everybody got the chart, the chat up on their screen? Looks like the answer is yes. So I will just read through what we've got here. Accountability, engagement, willingness to learn, listen to your needs, supportive, leadership, supportive, encouraging, dedicated, creative, caring, good communicator, dedicated, empathetic, believes in corporate philosophy and delivers the mission and vision every interaction. And a best and a worst, emotionally stable. Okay, let's see. Oh, strongest, honest, trustworthy, dedicated, and member-focused, weakest, guarded, and independent. Gives 100% commitment to projects and team, dedication, solution focus. So I guess my comment here is that, you know, in addition to what Simon Sinek talked about as trust being the core thing, I would say when you look at your team, what you need to consider when you're looking at people's performance is how they perform relative to these elements. And what I would do is take these things and actually turn them into your value statements. So I guess the other comment I'll make is, you know, if anybody has any comments or questions, feel free to jump in. You don't have to just listen to me here. I don't see anyone doing that. So, okay, so I think at the end of this, we will send the chat to everybody so you can have a look at this list and see whether there's anything in there you want to think about. But let me go back into screen sharing, and we'll talk about you know, what do you do with this? How do you turn this into something actionable? So let me resume sharing. Now you can see all the stuff on my screen. And there. Okay, so we've gone through that exercise. Really, the next steps here are to take your list and to refine it, right? Reflect on the things you've got there. Take a look at those things. Boil that down to, I would recommend somewhere between 3 and 5 attributes, and you're going to turn those into your core values. One of the things that's really important here is, as the leader of the team, you've got to be willing to live these values. So whatever that list is, it can't just be my best people look like this. You've got to buy into this too. It's got to be, our team is like this. Because really what we're looking for here is to say, imagine what your organization could be like if all of your people shared these characteristics, right? If your whole team, shared that set of values. So how do we make that happen? Well, a great way to start is to take each of those things. So we wrote like a word down, right? We had one word that said, trustworthiness or honesty, or, the collection that was on the screen a minute ago. And what is important here is to take those, so they're not just a word, they're not just even a sentence, and turn them into stories. The way to talk about this when you introduce your values to your team is to, for each value, say, here's a time where Joe did this, where Susan did that, where Kareem did this other thing. And that's what I mean when I'm talking about, delivering customer value, or whatever the attribute was. That's how you take those stories and you turn them into something meaningful for your team. Can't just be words on the wall, right? I've seen lots of businesses that have words on the wall. Here are our values, but that isn't what they do. That isn't how they behave. That it's nice, but it's not meaningful. You've got to make it real. So you start by turning it into a story. That's the first step. And then you take that and you build out your employee scorecard. So for each of your people, you look at how frequently they embody that particular value. You look at your team and you say, I want to think about whether somebody does this most of the time. If they do this most of the time, they get a plus. If they do this seldom, they get a minus. And if they're sometimes yes and sometimes no, they get a plus minus. And you can score your team this way. And this gives you another dimension in addition to the performance-oriented characteristics that we're used to, right? Did they do their job? Did they deliver on their deliverables? Well, this is how they did their job. This is how they impacted their teammates. This is getting at the things that actually make them effective and valuable and great employees. So when you do this, you're going to end up with scores that, look something like this, and you're going to have, Samir down at the bottom, who's got plus, 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 no issues with him. With Joe, you got a plus and a plus minus and a plus. So he's doing pretty well, got some room to improve on that second value. Maybe there's things he could be doing to, kind of ramp up his score there. And with Sue, well, maybe you got some issues, right? She's got 2 minuses here. That should be saying, well, we either have we can have a performance conversation. Let's say that. We want those scores to be better. And one of the things this can help you with is both development conversations for people in terms of growth, and having, I think, real conversations when it's time to get rid of somebody, to say, look, our team is like this, and you are not contributing in these kinds of ways. You are not a fit for this organization. I found this to be very helpful with the teams I've worked with over the years, to just add some color on the performance side of how you're managing your people and evaluating their performance. I hope that makes sense. So I want to go from here to talk a little bit about communication. So we've all had to deal with remote organizations, remote teams, remote people. Many of us, I say, have had to deal with this over the course of the last year. I'll tell you that in my prior life before TAB, when I was with IBM, I worked with global organizations around the world for 30 years. And so I've been working in remote, virtual kind of workplaces for probably 25 of those years. And have a lot of experience on what are the things that help you manage in this kind of remote environment. And the first most important thing I think I can say is that regular scheduled communication is critical. You've got to establish and stick to a schedule for a meeting with your team. And I would suggest you meet with your direct report team at least once a week, and your whole organization on a regular basis, less frequently than that. And that you meet one-on-one with your direct reports on a weekly basis as well. And spend some time in those, in both of those meetings, especially in the virtual context, in a more casual tone, right? Have a little bit of fun time when you're having those meetings. Don't spend all the time just sticking to business, because it's important to kind of reestablish a virtual water cooler, if you like, in the world we live in today. And then the third thing I would say here is, as we onboard people, as we bring new people into the team, it's important, or it's useful to assign them a buddy, somebody who isn't necessarily in their management chain, but has been in the organization for a while, can help them acclimatize, can help them get used to the way we do things here, and work more effectively together. So those are kind of 3 tips that I really encourage you to do if you aren't, and to harden up, and make sure you're kind of being rigorous with that if you are. Another thing I think it's important to talk about is that everybody's different. People are individual in the marketplace. That can help you understand kind of who people are. I encourage all my clients to use these tools because I think they're incredibly helpful. They're helpful in hiring the right people. They're helpful in really just establishing better communications and better understanding of who people are. And they can really help you kind of put the right person in the right seat. The company I work with is called Target Training International, TTI. And they create these behavioral reports. People sit down and type in an assessment. It takes 20, 30 minutes to do the assessments, and it generates a report for you. And the kinds of things you get in a report like that are, here are these people's strengths. Here are these people's kind of hangups, the things that might get in their way. Here is, I put up on the slide, here's a page that talks about, here's what the ideal environment for this individual is. And so, imagine if, as you're building and hiring and structuring your team, you actually have people working in their ideal environment. How much better is it for everybody if you've got round pegs in round holes and square pegs in square holes, rather than, trying to force fit people into roles that they're not particularly well suited for. And what these tools help you do is kind of see what people are suited for and talk that through with them, right? So that, everybody's on the same page in terms of, what our strengths are, what our weaknesses are, where can we best use people to be most effective. The next thing I want to say is make time for fun. And I'd like you to come off mute a little bit at the moment and just talk about this a little bit. Are you guys doing anything to spend time with your teams, to have fun, to enjoy the workplace, or enjoy the company of your peers? It's not just about business all the time. Anybody got something they'd like to share?
Richard, maybe I'll jump in. I don't know. This might be a bad example, and you might curse me after this call, but I have to admit, we recently did something within the business, which was a lot of fun, which was, we're building our prefabricated houses. That's our business here. And sometimes, that manufacturing process can be a bit repetitive, but we recently took our whole team out to do an install together. And although it was still work, it was a blast, and it was really exciting. And I really noticed the energy from everybody went up after that. So now we're a week after that happened, and again, I know it was still a work thing, but it was exciting, and it they all individually shared that it brought them a lot of joy and sort of vigor back to the process. So that was something, anyways.
So Richard, I can kind of say something what our office is doing. So we try to meet at least once or twice a week virtually, just to kind of talk about what's going on and stuff. So we are a very close office, just of five of us in our office. So in the summer, what we would do is kind of meet at a park and be able to have lunch together, although we all brought our own lunch and we brought our own lawn chairs and sat distanced and everything like that. It was just something different to be able to talk kind of face to face, although 6 feet apart, and we were able to kind of enjoy each other's company again instead of over Zoom calls.
Yeah. No, that's great. That's great. I do have a couple of ideas for you. So, and some of my clients are doing these kinds of things at the moment. So one of my clients is hosting pizza nights. So like on a Saturday night, they're basically ordering pizza for all of their employees and getting it delivered to their houses, and then having a kind of joint Zoom call where they eat pizza and chat. And that's been going over well with the team. Another one of my clients has tried something similar, and they've done like trivia nights and just got together with the team and played effectively Trivial Pursuit, or at least asked Trivial Pursuit questions across the team to just try to engage people in a different sort of way. And I guess what I would say here is, in general, try to use your imagination and think about how to pull people together in a way that's meaningful to people, and have a little fun while you're doing it. It's an important element of building your team and bonding as a group.
Richard, can I just add something? So
Yeah.
Like for me, right? It's really important that my team remembers how important they are.
Yes.
Not only to the organization, but to me, and we work for a board of directors, right? Yeah. And so throughout the pandemic, occasionally I will, it's very hard to find those ways to show appreciation in a virtual world. So being the grandma I am, right? I baked cookies. And I got in my car and I drove and delivered cookies to everybody on my team, in hopes that they realized they were worth that time and effort, and that I truly do appreciate everything they do.
I think that's beautiful, Sheila.
Sometimes those simple things from our past make a big difference.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And actually, that's a perfect segue to my next slide. So the other thing I want to say here is recognition is important. Recognition goes a long way. I found, as I've worked with small business owners, that often people, we have a win in the business. We have a victory. We got a big sale. Something great happened. We made some big improvement, and we quickly kind of gloss over it and think about the next goal. And it's hugely important to spend a little bit of time and celebrate the wins. So I've been encouraging all the folks I work with to actually make time to do exactly this, because as a general rule, I would say they suck at it. And so the only way to change that is to say, I'm going to force myself to think about this. So what I recommend here is that you schedule time. Actually, you put it on your calendar at the end of every week. You sit there and you reflect, what went well this week, and why did it go well? Who did that for me? And then how do I, put the sort of the right recognition to that individual? So I have a book recommendation for everybody here. And I think, as Sheila just said, it's hard to know how to do these things. There's a book out there on Amazon or lots of other places. It's called 1501 Ways to Reward Employees, Low Cost and No Cost Ideas. And written by a guy named Bob Nelson. I strongly recommend you get a copy of that book. It's got all kinds of interesting ideas in it. And as it says, low cost and no cost. So just to give you a little bit of a flavor of what's in the book, I did a cut and paste from one of its pages because I have an ebook version of it. And here's the bullet list, right? So it starts with thank yous and praise. And, even just the variations of thank yous and praise, from just saying thank you to sending them an email to say thank you to, I think the version of the book I was written before people were texting much, but you get add texts into that as well, right? But there's lots of things here. There's time with the boss. There's, the boss is going to wash your car. You get the employee parking space. There's lots of things here and the book, again, right, 1501 Ways has lots of these kinds of ideas. And I think the point is to say, you want to understand who your people are. You want to understand what kind of recognition matters to them, and you want to reward them in a way that fits that particular individual. Any thoughts or comments on this actually as we go through?
Richard, maybe just another thought here.
Yeah.
I think this piece is critical. Keeping in mind that everybody's managing their mental health through this piece in their own way. And we get really trapped on this platform, right? And so one of the things I did was incorporated some self-care time for everybody, and have asked them each to take a day a month for themselves to do what it is they need to do, so that they can be their best when they do come in. So it's a small thing. I know it's not something everybody can accommodate, but I think it's appreciated by our team for sure.
Yeah, I think that's awesome, Sheila. And well done.
Thank you.
Okay. This is really the last thing I'd like to share with everybody. So I've been talking with Tanya, and we're going to be introducing a business owners mastermind, a bi-monthly meeting every other month for business owners who are CBOT members. It will be a 2-hour meeting conducted over Zoom. And we can accommodate up to 8 people per meeting. And basically the structure of this is going to be, you get to bring a challenge or an opportunity that you're facing. This is what I do with my members on a more regular basis. And we're going to talk about it as a group. We're going to help you figure out, the right next step for that challenge or opportunity in a safe environment with a bunch of people who have similar kinds of challenges and issues. And we'll work through as many of those challenges as we can in that 2-hour period. The first one of these is going to be on Wednesday, May the 12th from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning. There will be no cost. And if you're interested in joining, just contact Tanya and we'll get that sorted. And we may, depending on how many people are interested, we may need to rotate kind of time over time, but we'll figure that out as we go along. Let me just
Richard?
check what's in the chat. Yes.
Can you just kind of about the mastermind groups, can you kind of maybe discuss a few of the challenges that have kind of been brought to you before, maybe like how it's kind of, I don't want to say like an agenda of a meeting, but just kind of a little bit of an outline of how meetings go, so people are aware of what you're kind of talking about a little bit more?
Sure. Well, lots of the conversations we have are about people. You know, I've got an employee and they're doing this, and you know, I'm not sure what to do next. That's certainly a flavor of conversation that comes up regularly. We talk about everything, really. So it's you know, I want to grow sales, and you know, here's what I've tried, and yeah, I'm not sure what else I could do. Does anyone have any, you know, ideas about how we might grow the business? It's hey Jeremy, help me here. What else do we talk about? Yeah, I mean, really, it's every kind of challenge you can think of when you're running a business, and what we will do in this meeting is say, okay, let's collect at the beginning of the meeting. We'll collect that set of challenges, and then we'll together we'll decide which ones we want to, or which order we want to tackle those in. And then we will basically go kind of challenge by challenge, opportunity by opportunity, and talk through each of those things. So what we do in those cases is we have the person who's bringing the challenge say, okay, this is what my problem is. Here's what I've tried to do to deal with it. You know, what do you guys think? And then we basically go around the room and ask everybody to say, okay, well, you know, if I've ever had a situation like that, you know, in, you know, any sort of context, here's what I've done to deal with it, or here's what I've seen in some other, you know, kind of aspect of my life, or in, you know, sort of similar situations. And then we take all of that and say, okay, so, you know, based on the conversations we've just had, what's your next step going to be, right? And help you kind of move forward on whatever the topic was. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a question from Angie in the chat box.
Do I have recommendations on programs or courses that staff can participate in to improve communication skills? Not off the top of my head. I would say it depends really on what kind of communication challenge you're trying to tackle. So yeah, maybe we could talk more about that, but I don't have a sort of vanilla answer to that, I guess. Let's see. Okay, so Mastermind Group. From there, that's pretty much a wrap for what I have here. Again, right, I would say the takeaways are, if you want a great team, you got to have great people. So how do you get great people? You take control of your culture and your communications. I would encourage all of you to complete that values exercise and incorporate those values into your life, into your everyday. You know, build out those scorecards, use that as a tool to help you hire better, identify whether people are performing to the way the team needs to be performing, and fire the people, get rid of the people that aren't, because they're holding you back. And similarly, take a look at what you're doing for communications and recognition, and formalize it if it isn't, schedule it if it isn't, and yeah, recognize your people, recognize your team. Don't forget to say thank you. If you're interested, sign up for the Mastermind Group. And if you'd like to follow up with me at all, my email is right there, richard@tabgtaeast.com, and I would be happy to talk to any of you further after this.
Thank you so much, Richard, for today. I know for me as an employee, communication and culture has always been very important to me. So being able to go to work every day and be part of a team that feels the same way as you do is always a good thing, that with having the same values and approach and all those great things. So thank you so much for everything that you said today. And I have recorded this meeting, so I will be sending it out to all that attended and all that unfortunately were unable to attend. And if anybody has any other questions, they can contact me or contact Richard directly. And if you are interested in the mastermind meetings, please send me a message, and we're going to start putting that together as well. So thank you for everybody to attend.
Thanks very much, everybody.